You've probably heard of the term, if you can't beat them, join them, right? So the farmers in the latter half of the 19th century are going to try to work in the system. They're going to try to change the system from within it rather than protests and try to. But the first thing they need to do is organize, right? So the first real big farmers and organization right in the aftermath of the Civil War is going to be known as the Grange. They're going to become a social institution, but in the 1870s, they're going to actually be a political organization with about 1.5 million members. It's the Grange that are responsible for getting states to try to regulate the railroads. So they're working more at the state level than the national level. But unfortunately, their efforts are going to turn to naught because of the fact that the courts are going to say that state laws regulating the railroads, well, they're unconstitutional because only the federal government regulates interstate commerce. But nevertheless, what's important about the Grange is the fact that it showed what farmers could do and when they organize and what they could accomplish, maybe even at the national level. At the national level, they're going to try to create what's known as farmers' alliances. Now, technically, there are three of them, with the largest of them being here, actually from here in Texas, the Southern Farmers Alliance, originally organized in Lampasas, Texas, and they're designed basically to try to promote higher commodity prices through collective action. But unfortunately, before it ever really gets popular, it goes away. It fails in its mission. But nevertheless, by the time it's done, the farmers' alliances have already accumulated about 5 million members. Now, from there, we're going to morph in the 1890s into an actual political party known as the Populist Party. And it's the People's Party. Their basic point: we're in trouble. Both parties are neither party is going to help, so we're going to get into politics and protest and do something about it ourselves. And so the 1890s sees this third party, the Populist Party, become a player in American politics. The first presidential election that they get involved in is in 1892. And they're going to have their convention in Omaha, Nebraska. Now, they're going to have a platform, like every party, and it's called the Omaha Platform. And here's some highlights. This is not the whole thing, but here are some highlights. Number one, a flexible national currency. A currency that, first of all, they wanted paper money, national tender, legal tender paper money, like we have today. Pull out a dollar. Pull out whatever's in your wallet and take a look at it. Does it say backed by gold, backed by silver? No. Instead, it says this is legal tender for all debts, public and private, right? Meaning that why is that dollar worth $1? Well, it's because, number one, it says it's worth $1. Number two, you will accept $1 worth of services in exchange for it. And number three, the federal government's backing it up. They also are going to call for the free coining of silver. All right, they want to make sure that inflation rates are going to go higher because remember, the 1890s is a time period of deflation, not inflation. A second thing is progressive income tax. The more you make, the more you pay. Now, compare, for example, if you are a traditional age student, 18 to 22 years old, most likely you are, full-time student, you don't have a job, and so therefore you're not making as much as I am. So when it comes to paying your taxes, you're not going to pay as much tax as I am. So the more you make, the more you pay. Number three, direct election of senators. Before this progressive era, which we'll be talking about in later videos, a senator was actually elected by the state legislature. I live in Texas, and this video is cut in 2018. Our two U.S. senators are John Cornyn and Ted Cruz, right? So nowadays, the people of the state of Texas voted for these two men, right? Well, back then, the state legislature voted for them, right? And they selected them. The populists believed that if senators are directly elected by the people, there would be less corruption and less special interest involvement. Glad that worked out really well. Sarcasm, of course. Number four, and here's the biggest one: the United States government ownership and operation of the telegraph and the railroad. Let me say that again so that you understand. The government ownership of the railroad and telegraph. What is that? That's nationalization of an industry, i.e. socialism. This isn't reform. This is radical. So this is going to be, to people that like private enterprise, this is going to be a major threat. This, in essence, is a complete rejection of laissez-faire. A complete rejection in a much more of a liberal reform, in fact, downright socialist reform. And this is what's going to happen in the 1890s. Now, the populists are going to nominate two people. They're going to, for president of the United States, they're going to nominate a Union general named James Weaver and a Confederate general named James Field. But unfortunately for them, they had very little impact in their first election, the election of 1892, which pits actually two presidents of the United States, the incumbent Benjamin Harrison versus Grover Cleveland, a former president who actually got beat by Benjamin Harrison in 1888. So they're going to get involved in the election, but they don't have much of an impact. In fact, what's going to happen is basically Grover Cleveland is going to be reelected over Benjamin Harrison, making Cleveland, by the way, the only president to serve 2 terms non-consecutively.